and made my character.
Kate, a young single girl. Why would I be invited to Dungeons and Dragons games?
No,
That's
I mean
so
back then
strange,
it was
guys.
all just like
We're
at one
live, and that's the
time.
best opening I've ever done. And we are live here to chat about all of the Dungeons and Dragons guys that have invited us to play games this week. And what could they possibly be interested in? And also the TV we watched this week, and Critical Role, and whatever else. I'm so excited. I'm joined by the lovely fair maiden in the Dungeons and Dragons space, the newest newcomer, the hot new main character, Kate, and Carey, who is also an archetype, but I haven't quite pinned that down yet. And most importantly, we're going to be talking about the season 2 finale of Only Murders in the Building. So excited, literally so excited. Carrie's jumped on board with that, just marathon the first season. We're also going to dabble and talk about the first episode of House of the Dragon a bit, and then all of the other things we've watch this week. I don't know, tabletop RPG games we might be mildly interested in. I don't know, Kate. You'll have to let us know. Um the face palming level just like increases every time I speak. So, I will stop. Tell me how you've been this week, Kate, and what news have we missed?
I've been pretty good this week, and we've got some pretty fun news. So we've had a couple of new updates and about who's going to be at DragonCon and whatever. And I'm going to be very honest, I had never really been that excited. And then we got the news that Emily Bit Ricards was going to be there, and my excitement skyrocketed.
All I do is win. All I do
Um,
is win.
all, yeah, that's the exact response you sent me when I sent you that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like just to follow that up with Arrowverse news, kind of as things are coming and going with the Arrowverse, Jordan Elas, I'm going to guess that's how you would say his last name. He played Jonathan, is leaving, so he will not be in season 3. So they're going to recast him.
And while
And
that is sad, we're not going to have a guy named Jordan playing a guy named Jonathan, who's the brother of the guy named Jordan. So there is a mild chance I'll remember their names moving forward.
no, you won't.
No, I won't. You're so right. Please continue.
Um, in other spectacular news, we have a trailer for the new Wednesday Addams show, Wednesday. That's going to be on Netflix. You can expect probably all three of us to be watching that. We were super excited about
Yes.
that one. What else? We got confirmation and a perspective. I don't remember the date. I don't have it written down. But the second Knives Out movie has been announced. Pictures have been released. It looks very good. The first one was very good. We probably will be talking about that when that comes out. And Carrie, you might want to not listen to this one. We got season 3 announcements for casting for Only Murders in the Building. Paul Rudd is going to be a season regular for a season 3 of Only Murders in the Building.
I'm so excited about that. And it's like kind of not a spoiler, but also kind of a spoiler.
Yeah. Yeah, out of all the different random celebrity cameos, that was a really exciting one. And then
Yeah.
for them to immediately confirm he's going to be back and important in season 3, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. I'm thrilled. I love all of the like placements of high profile. Well, I love what they do when they get high profile or richly experienced actors on that show, but we'll get into that when we start talking about Only Murders in the Building. I will also add, I saw some of the first like teaser images or whatever from season 2 of White Lotus, and I'm so excited. We've got Aubrey Plaza, we've got a bunch of other big names. I'm most excited about Aubrey Plaza. I'm so sure season 2 is going to be fantastic. Season 1 was just chef's kiss. judging by the blank stares, it's all coming back to me that you two may not have watched White Lotus season 1. Is that right?
We didn't, but I still currently have HBO Max, so I might be persuaded to catch up.
Once you get done catching up on some of, the other things on your list, that's a pretty solid watch investment there. And it's only one season.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, I think it's time for us to dive into Only Murders in the Building. So here's how I think we should do it. And then I'll just leave it to Carey to unplug his headphones whenever he feels so led. But I think we should just kind of talk about what the franchise did this season and how we felt about it and how that kind of continues off of season 1. And then if we get into anything too spoilery, we'll give Carey the heads up so that he doesn't get spoiled on season 2 because it's fantastic. But Carey, having just finished season 1, you have an interesting kind of very fresh perspective on what we were all probably hoping for season 2. So having just finished season 1 and we just finished season 2, what are you hoping happened?
More of the same, right? More of the same. The craziest thing, and obviously just having the last 2 days, having an opportunity to watch it, the thing that struck me the most is that you have these 3 folks who basically are a found family who come together because of a common interest, right? Which is something that we can sort of all sort of understand and are familiar with. And it's just sort of crazy how that sort of happens and how people get interwoven into your lives based on happenstance sometimes. So, but to answer your question, just more the same. And obviously, I mean, good Lord, we want to know who did what and how it happened and all that good stuff. But yeah, yeah, probably as soon as I get off here, I'll be starting season 2, episode 1. So
I'm trying to remember what we were most hoping for going into this season. And I think you really nailed it with more of the same because we ended season 1 so positive. And this is not really a spoiler, but I think you could tell just based on what we've said each week, we both really enjoyed season 2 and felt it gave, well, I definitely felt like it gave more of the same. But Kate, in what ways do you feel like season 2 differed?
I think generally it's somehow even better. I would say that there are differences. There are things that are not fully dropped plots, but there's plots that to me I would say are less developed. Whereas in season 1 they were very deliberate and they didn't really start a storyline that didn't finish. Whereas there wasn't anything left unfinished with season 2. There were things that were left a little underdeveloped that you're like, why was that made such a big deal at first and then kind of quickly finished up? That happened a little bit more in season 2, but what I think they did really well to counterbalance that is somehow it was even more enriched with the points that were important, the points that they really made you care about even more. They did a really great job of kind of not necessarily surprising you or going in a unique way, because that's already kind of built into the story structure that they're going to continuously reveal things that you could never have predicted, that you had to have discovered with them, but really involve you in the story and make you care about all the people that are involved. And somehow they did it even better in season 2. Despite maybe some of the more pacing pitfalls that they fell into in season 2.
One of the things environmentally that I thought they did well, in terms of setting certain scenes in season 2 that I think we saw more of in season 2 than we saw in season 1, was this idea of a setting of I'm going to call it a small house party, but a small adult house party. We see several instances, the kind of silly game scene, this I'm going to call it a social deception game scene that we see in season 2, which is very fun. And then in the actual finale, we have sort of a let's gather in the parlor and talk sort of party with balloons and stuff. They captured this yes, very Clue. They captured this feeling of having like a party or a celebration, but it's on a small scale and it's in somebody's house. And with this idea of the building remaining a character, with the setting kind of coming alive, I think capturing that was really nice, because in season one, generally when we saw people congregate and talk and have that, whether it was celebratory or not, like have this sort of common space across homes to talk, we were generally seeing it, and Carey, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're more familiar with season one, having just watched it, we're generally seeing it in sort of these building meetings that were run by Bunny, like in the lobby, the foyer, like the whole running dips conversation, like it was in a common shared space, not gathering in somebody's home. And I really enjoyed getting to see them gather in somebody's home this time around.
Which is an interesting dichotomy, because what I would also note is this season felt like they actually got out of the building more often. So in season
Definitely.
one, they really only had one excursion outside of the building, one main excursion. Whereas almost every episode, they had a point of going out and talking to other people, going to a diner, going to other places. And they're doing that in such a, like they're consciously making that effort, I think, because they're trying to like stretch the circle of it's murders in the building, but is it really only murders in the building? So that way that they have more longevity for the show, and be able to kind of stretch the concept of, okay, well, how much can we say fits our initial concept of the show, and by like slowly and organically stretching what that kind of how that fits is a really great concept. So the investigations and meetings are more intimate, but their search is broader.
Well, certainly, I have to assume and imagine you have so many murders in one building, someone's going to move in there, right? It's the murder building. Why would you ever want to live there, right?
So
Yeah.
Would we want to start seeing murders not in the building?
I mean, obviously not having the insight that you guys have from seeing season two, obviously the connection they made with the investigator leads me to believe that they have an opportunity to sort of stretch their wings if they wanted to, right? I mean, I'm not saying that they have to be like consultants to like murder investigations, but that feels like or felt like a natural progression if that's something they want to sort of explore.
One of the things that we see kind of explored more in season two that is touched on in season one is this idea of, with podcasts and true crime communities. And in season two, I know you've already heard us talk about this, and this is certainly in the casting announcements for season two, we meet other true crime podcasters. And you saw in season one, there's some true crime podcast fans, and we see that again continually revisited in season two, maybe expanded, we get some new characters. And with that community being explored, there's also this idea of the sensationalizing, am I saying that? Sensationalizing of murder. So my question is, so far, and I know so far is different for both of you, how well do you think this show has handled this idea of like, these are real murders, these are real grisly murders, these people are actually dead, and we're making it a comedy, and we're making a for-profit podcast, all of this, and we've got fans, and we've become, D-list celebrities or whatever. How well do you think the show has handled this idea of sensationalizing dark events?
Well, obviously only being able to speak for season one, they did touch on that when I guess the realization is that Mabel had like a connection and had a tie to Tim Kona, and it was like, well, and for them it sort of went from, hey, we're trying to solve this murder, to, hey, this is a person who has connections to people, and so it was that sort of realization that they had, that this isn't just, hey, something for us to sort of work on and solve. This has an impact, like, and so I mean that was much on a much smaller scale. From what you said about season two, it sounds like that's something that these other podcasters, and since this is, I would imagine, sort of taken off, is probably sort of a conversation that either they probably have had or probably should have, because these are people's lives that are being taken. And it's like, because that was something else that was sort of jarring to me, because it's like when I think about podcasts, it's just sort of something that's general and trivial, right? We're
Mhm.
talking about murders and active murders and active investigations, and they're talking about it all the time, which is kind of sort of what like news media does, but not
Right.
on sort of the same sort of entertainment scale that you get from a podcast. And so I thought that was an interesting sort of thing to follow.
I like that perspective that this is what the news media does, even if they put a fake absence of comedy on it. People still do watch that for entertainment. Even your Dateline and 2020 specials. So in this latest season, we see, and as you already, this isn't a spoiler, you saw it at the end of season 1. You saw that the person who is murdered, the murder that we're exploring, was somebody who was a bit of a gray character, a bit of a controversial character who not everybody liked, who a lot of people wished badly on. And we see them explore the complexity of who likes her and who doesn't like her throughout season 2, and it really humanizes her. And they find fun ways to keep her presence sort of there throughout the show. And they continue to show the 3 main characters as complex and mixed as well, to the point where I think, Kate, was it 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago or something like this? I was theorizing about one of the 3 main characters being actually the bad guy, which may or may not be the case. No spoilers. So, how do you think in season 2 they're handling this, like, everybody's a little good and everybody's a little bad? And for somebody like you who likes a good justice-oriented character, is that hindering your ability to attach to any characters?
I think they're doing it really well. So like how you put, I like justice characters. I like justice characters, or at least if not justice characters, I like characters that have some semblance of like a realization and respect for the reality of their situation, even if it's a beyond reality situation or story or a story approach. The thing is they don't really ever project themselves to be the good guys. They're not trying to be the heroes. They are very much in this. In the second season, they have their own personal reasons. They explain that within the first few episodes of like, we have more specific goals here than what we had the first season. But then you also get some of the backstory episodes, and you get this kind of better insight into they feel guilt for some of the things that they've done in the past. And while it doesn't necessarily take any of the sensationalization out of the real life situation of if you were in real life making a podcast on a murder, but what it does do is it kind of gives you an understanding of why, past their own situation, why they feel so bound to do this. That the moral implications of making a podcast for money aside, you can buy their investment in this specific story based on the backstory that we're given throughout the show. And I think that's really good. I like a good hero villain story, but it's even more I like a story that tells a hero villain story that shows the hero's not always good and the villain's not always bad, and that we're more complicated than that, and sometimes the heroes can mess up and that's okay. And I think those stories are more oriented towards like superhero stories, but here we also get that where we would say that the trio is the good guys, but they have made mistakes. They've done things that were not the best things for their friends, their family, people around them. But you support them and you want them to do right because you see the humanity in their decisions. And I think that is why it's such a successful representation of what it would be like to make this podcast is, yeah, there's some ethical questionability about projecting an ongoing investigation for the reasons that they're doing it, but you also understand why they're doing it, and you kind of can't help but go, yeah, that makes sense. And it's not correct, but it's not something I can really blame you for either.
That's such a good summary of I think the perspective they're wanting to push. And as somebody who like it's very I love a good, mixed or villainy character. No spoilers, but there's a kind of mixed borderline villainy romance even gasp this season with some good and bad people, and some might be more bad than good. How fun. We love it. It's easy for me to still attach, but with nobody being all good and nobody being all bad, it doesn't always activate this desire to root for or against someone. It does for me activate this desire to solve mysteries, which is I think what they're trying to get us to do. So in that sense, they're successful. In the chat, Stormy says, "Hi, I've never seen the show, but that was a great way to sell me on the show, Kate." So thank you, Kate, for that summary. William in the chat says, "Hello, Deutsch. I think he's saying hello in German, maybe ish. Me and my 2 brain cells only speak English, and I greatly admire anybody that can drop any word in any other language in the chat. So please feel free to do so." I think the discussion we just had regarding this idea of like gray characters will feed really well into a discussion of House of the Dragon, but I don't think everybody here has watched it. In fact, I would venture to the premiere episode. In fact, I would venture to say nobody but me has watched it.
You would be correct.
Yeah.
And I think that also applies to many of those in the chat, because I know Stormy had mentioned to me that she doesn't watch it, or she isn't watching it, and she's kind of rooting against it. So let me go on like one tiny little spiel about it, and then we'll go round robin, because I want to hear about She-Hulk from Carey, and I want to hear some Critical Role updates from Kate. So let me just touch on House of the Dragon here. So I watched the premiere episode like the night it was released, type of thing, just because there was a friend who wanted to watch it, and I was like, I watch a ton of crap. Why not? Now, for context, I've watched 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, and I quit after the 2nd season. They really lost me there. But I was like vaguely aware of what went on, in the sense that like you'll recall everybody talked about it incessantly, whether they were complaining or enjoying it, right? And up until the very end. So like I've got a vague sense of like what goes on till season, I don't know, whatever it is, 6 or something. The premiere episode of House of the Dragon, it's easy to follow if you're somebody like me that hasn't watched Game of Thrones, but here's my problem. It's not that all the characters are gray and mixed and there's no like good, like strong, perfect, whatever character. I get it. Like there is one character that they seem to try to be selling us so far that like she's the good one, right? Like she's the fighter, she's good, she's the one who like wants her mother to be okay and takes care of her friends and is this sort of like stubborn justice element that we like to see. And I can see the writing on the wall. I know the creators of this are going to absolutely destroy her and probably turn her into like an evil queen or something. Like I know it. I get it. And that's not my problem with these characters being like mixed in terms of moral alignment. My problem is this show is not fun to watch. What do these creators have against an enjoyable experience? It is grotesque. It's bloody. It's constant conflict with almost no relief. The image that I'm using as the thumbnail for this video, is one of the only moments of like borderline peace in this show. And it's presented, the 2 girls, they are presented so ominously throughout the entire episode that it is abundantly clear, like extremely bad things are going to happen to them outside of the bad things that happen to them this episode. Are we okay with some mild spoilers that you probably already know, only of the first episode? Yes-ish? William in the chat says the creators need an enema. I could not agree more. So here's some mild spoilers. So the 2 girls, the 2 young ladies, whatever, probably royalty-ish or royalty adjacent, we'll say, based on their proximity to the king. Throughout this episode, they go through near-death experiences of the people they care about romantically or familially. One of them loses a parent and a sibling. The other one is basically forced into a position where she kind of has to sleep with an older man if he wants it, like a much older man. Um, and it's her father that sets it up. So, like, just horrific things happen to these two the first episode. And even the horrific things aside, the writing is so clear on the wall that they're about to put these people through hell. And I just want to know where the joy is. Like, where am I getting the entertainment from this? I can see the aesthetics. Like, this is high budget. I get it. Costumes, beautiful. Setting, fantastic. The micro writing, like just like the dialogue, like just being well written and well delivered, like an individual sentence making sense for a character to say. So micro writing, not the macro writing, not the story progression itself. Micro writing flows, like it has all the markings of a high budget show. It's what you would expect. It's not blowing me out of the water, but it's good. You know, like if somebody were to say like, oh, the CGI sucks on the dragons or the soundtrack's derivative or whatever, I would disagree with that. I think it's a very good. It's great, probably even. I'm sure it will like win Emmys or whatever. But where is the joy? And I am so willing to watch absolute garbage. I will probably continue watching a couple episodes of this show just because everybody's probably going to be talking about it constantly, and my toxic trait is to have like strong opinions about something that like nobody asked for my opinion, right? So like this will give me an opportunity to just be like as wildly annoying as possible. But I just want to know what they have against giving the viewers any sense of positivity. With
I
that,
mean,
go ahead.
I mean, I watched the original Game of Thrones, and while I liked it, I wasn't as invested as some people when they hopped on Twitter to rant. So I don't really remember how I felt about the ending. I remember I kind of had a more neutral opinion about the whole thing, but because I like fantasy, I like historical stories, I like that kind of genre, I did enjoy most of it because of certain aspects of it. However, I do remember I would sometimes get a little annoyed because it's very undynamic in the storytelling. You kind of have to remember that you have to build up really good stakes and like good things for you to care when bad things happen, because if it's all just bad, it's all just bad, and there's very little stakes because everything sucks no matter what. And that was like my only, like, kind of the only thing I really remember about Game of Thrones, like any issue I ever had with it, was the fact that they did a little too much doom and gloom. And not because it was so dark that was a bad thing. I really like dark shows too, but it's more of the, they didn't infuse really any happy. So whenever you just punished a character again, I'm like, well, it happened again, I guess, and less of like, oh no, how heartbreaking.
Well, I know what could cheer us up. Hearing about She-Hulk. So we're just going to rotate this a little bit. Let's get Carey up here in the hot seat. I'll drop myself down to the bottom, having gone on my rant already. And there we go. Carey, talk to us. Oh, now the background's showing up too. Fantastic. Carey, talk to us about She-Hulk. Bring some joy into our lives. Are we going to like this show?
Yes, it's bright and full of joy and spunk. Um, the it's they've only done the first episode, and it had sort of a lot to do, right? I mean, you have to introduce a character that, for better or for worse, like for the MCU, there might be people who don't know who she is, so you have to have that whole sort of like origin situation. But it was done fun, and it was sort of like one of the better things about the show is that it moves swiftly, whether it's like the writing or whether it's like the pacing or the show and that sort of thing. So there's that. And I've never watched like, was it Orphan Black with
Yeah.
Tatiana Maslany? Never saw it, but understands that she was fantastic in it.
Yeah.
And I can believe it because essentially every time she's on the screen, it's like there's just like this energy that she has, and it's fun. Um, it's also because the first episode, it has, like I said, it has a lot to do. It has to introduce a character. It has to sort of set the tone for the show, and all that. And I guess the best way I would describe it is if you were familiar with, say, like Ally McBeal back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
probably a little bit of The Office, not so much in like the sort of like camera confessional sort of thing, but just sort of like the sort of like office dynamics of what the show's going to get to. It's a lawyer show, so you're going to get that a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and it probably I mean, she does also have the fourth wall breaking, so there's a little bit of Deadpool that you would get sort of that sense from it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, wh- and so what I'm really interested in, because like I said, the first episode was sort of a lot of setup, but and I think this show is like maybe 9 or 10 like episodes long, so it gives you a good opportunity to sort of sit with this character and see what she's about, see what the show is about, and it's like I said, it's a lot of fun. Um, and I think it's going to be a really good addition because one of the things that you want to see from a Disney Plus quote unquote TV show is to sort of take that format. And one of the best things that TV can do is sort of like sit with a situation or bring something to the screen that you're not always going to get in a movie because there are sort of plots and points and that sort of thing that you feel like you have to get to, and you feel like you have to sort of like just go point to point. And in a
Yep.
television show, you get to sort of sit with the character a little bit, and she's a fun character to sit with. So one of the things that's interesting, I mean, and I know this sort of about the characters, I guess I would imagine when everyone hears that you're going to bring in Tatiana Maslany, who in a previous show that she's famous for played like these different incredible variations of like one character. And so you hear that she's playing Jennifer Walters with the alter ego of She-Hulk. One of the more interesting things about this is that there really isn't any difference in the personality of the two. There is just
Ah.
an obvious, yes, there's just an obvious and significant difference in terms of obviously the power that one of these characters sort of like has. And so I think you're going to get sort of this sense during the show of how how the character sort of deals with how people treat her differently as sort of the more, I guess, demure, for lack of a better phrase, her human character, and then of course the counterpoint of being She-Hulk. And so I think that'll be interesting to watch and navigate. The other thing that's sort of like crazy and being in sort of like quote unquote phase 5 of the MCU is that people who quote unquote inhabit this universe on screen have pretty much seen everything that you can throw at them, right? So having a character be She-Hulk and not necessarily hiding it, it's like, hey, you go into a courtroom and all of a sudden someone changes into She-Hulk. It's like, okay, this must just be Tuesday, right?
Right.
Because it's no big deal. So I think playing with that aspect of a little bit will be fun as well. But yeah, I liked it a lot. I know that there was a lot of criticism when the trailer first came out. People were complaining about the CGI, and I'm not going to say it's like the best in the world, but it's pretty believable. And so if that was sort of like a hindrance for most folks thinking I don't want to watch that, or I think that's going to sort of be an issue or problem, I don't think it is. So long story short, I thought it was a fun watch.
Slightly odd special effects in an otherwise good story can not only is that not off-putting to me, sometimes that can be kind of a fun, intentional, artistic choice to make it kind of fit within this sort of cartoony hero-esque realm. And I will say one of the things you mentioned that piqued my interest for this show is you said right now so far this contrast of lawyer Jennifer, I think you said her name is, compared
Yeah.
to her Hulk alter ego, other than physical differences, their personalities and mannerisms are not wildly different. And that to me is very interesting for an introductory episode because, as you know, like they can't cover everything and really give you deep character development, but knowing that the actor, knowing that Tatiana Maslany has this ability to create starkly different characters and have them even, be able to, you know, switch between, like from scene to scene or even within scenes with each other, be able to like switch this and really embody this character, and then this character imitating another, like that particular set of skills that she's shown. It tells me may be able to give us this character development for the Hulk or She-Hulk or whatever, and character development for her as a human lawyer that can make them almost divert away from each other, or maybe she
Well,
is the
see,
whole. Sorry, go ahead.
well, no, I'm sorry, and I don't know if I explained it because what we know about like quote unquote, and I'll just call him Man Hulk because just to be clear, right? So basically, Bruce Banner, right? When he becomes the Hulk, or at least when he initially became the Hulk, they were two complete and total separate entities, right? When she becomes the Hulk, Jennifer Walters is still in control. It's just one mind, just a different
Okay.
body. But I will say that, I mean, like anything else, right? It's sort of like, say, like, I guess when most people sort of like grow into what they're going to be, whether it's like in middle school or high school, say like you have a summer when you sort of blossom from being like the sort of stick nerd in school, and then all of a sudden you like grow like about a foot and become athletic and all those sorts of things, right? You kind of sort of become a different persona to other people, but you're still the same person inside, right? But you may begin to act differently because people treat you differently, right? So I think that may be sort of what she has to deal with, obviously having this whole persona, because people are obviously going to treat her different. So I think that'll be fun.
That does sound fun. I'm very excited to watch it. William in the chat mentions that She-Hulk hasn't impressed him quite yet. Well, give it a shot, William. There's a lot more still to come. And he gives a little shout out to Better Call Saul. I have not watched that, but let me know. Give me a little pitch in the chat, William, on why I should watch that. Going back to our discussion of House of the Dragons and the sheer lack of joy, Stormy mentions that she stands by what she said on Twitter. She just doesn't want to watch an endless torment for women. It's the same reason she can't watch The Handmaid's Tale. Stormy, every time I watch The Handmaid's Tale, I consider quitting it as well, but for some reason, I'm still watching that. But anybody that doesn't want to watch the constant torment of women, I am 100% on your side. You are right. Love yourself, respect your time, and watch things that bring you joy. William also very sweetly says in the chat that the joy is watching your beautiful face. I think he's referring to all three of us combined in one face. Okay. Next, Kate. Bring us up to speed on what you've been watching this week. In particular, I want to know, you tossed a lot of theories at us, and granted, Carey and I don't watch Critical Role yet, but you tossed some theories at us. You kind of took us on a fun little storytelling journey. And I just want to know, were you right? What do we know? Take us into Crack Theory Corner.
I don't fully remember all of the things I've said on here, texted you, told other friends. It's been a lot. I've had a handful of theories, to put it lightly. But in episode 31, and 30, so 30 and 31, we had a lot of reveals, a lot of fun reveals. Confirmation that my insane theory that not only is the moon a god prison, but there's a city on the moon that is a god prison. Yeah, those were both right. Just waiting for confirmation that it is a cult base following said theories. We're going to wait and see. Other theory, which I was curious to figure out exactly when I formed this theory, so I did a little investigating in my notes. I thought of this episode 1.
Okay.
But the robot character whenever he blacks out, he is in fact the murderer that kills his friends. So,
well,
we got confirmation about that. So fun. Great. And going forward, I think we might get some confirmation that perhaps the biggest villain that we have so far is one of the main character's mothers that she doesn't know.
Ooh.
It's just like fun stuff. That different planes of existence are trying to crash into each other. That would be fun. I've got a lot of theories that kind of floating around, kind of spread out to different fronts and like places to tell each other. But it's continually upping itself, which is so surprising. And I don't understand how, with the past 7 episodes, it feels like a marathon every time you watch because there's so many reveals after reveals of just this really rich lore. And it feels like the story's going so quickly. But I am extremely excited to see where this goes. And while I would definitely be encouraging of anybody to watch, I will also say I don't expect anybody to watch here because it is about 4 hours every week. I don't know how I make time, but I make time.
Maybe if you watch it in like 2x speed.
That is how I'm watching the old campaigns, so that's probably.
Well, I'll just briefly touch on what else I've watched this week and theories I've got right or wrong. First of all, I watched Never Have I Ever, and based on what I know of the creator of Never Have I Ever, Mindy Kaling, and what she likes to see in a romance, because we've all been watching her work quite a while. If we've watched The Office or The Mindy Project or her ongoing storyline with BJ Novak and, The Real World, I had a theory on which character, it's a dumb high school show, but it's like, it's so good, but it's so bad. Whatever. Anyways, I had a theory on like which character in like the love pentagon that was going on would be like the character, like the guy that this girl is going for, whatever. And they like pretty solidly by the end of this latest season, like kind of stake their claim on like which ship is the ship without necessarily like making them endgame yet, but like they finally are like they kind of give it anyways. And I was right. Was he my favorite? Absolutely not. Is it a good ship? Not really, but like good entertaining show. If you want to really be able to just like turn off your brain, highly recommend. The other thing, which also involved turning off my brain, is The Bachelorette. It's going terrible. They have so many truly awful men on this show. It really makes you wonder and confront the question, would a good guy sign up to be on The Bachelorette? Is it possible all of them are awful? So we could just maybe sit with that. Stormy in the chat says she truly can't stand Ben on Never Have I Ever. Well, yes, spoilers. Ben is the one. I can't stand him either. He is annoying, kind of disrespectful, and just has really good chemistry with the lead. But he has all of the earmarks of what Mindy Kaling likes in a male romance lead. So he's what we get. We get what we get and we don't throw a fit. I mean, I'll throw a fit anyways. That's what I've been watching this week. Carey, I'll give you the final minutes to talk us through what else you've been watching this week, because I happen to know that it's an Arrow rewatch and you are getting to the good part.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I will. It's the next episode. And I forget. I know the name of it, but I can't pronounce it, so I'm not even going to try and butcher
Capuchin
it.
or something?
Right? Yeah, there you go. Works for me.
Maybe.
But yeah, it's what having this rewatch is pretty much cemented to me that season 5 is my favorite season. Not gonna say it's the best because I know people have like personal preferences, right? But I'm really looking forward to this next episode. It just, from what I remember about it and what I'm looking forward to, is sort of like a 2-man play. Just basically Josh and Amel having like their moment. It's pretty intense and they go at it. So I am incredibly looking forward to watching that. But I did have a question for you guys. After just watching Only Murders in the Building, It was the episode when they brought in the podcast lovers to sort of try to help them navigate the solving of the murder. So the question I have for you is, it's not podcast related or whatever. It could be show related, movie related. But what property, what movie, what show would you want the creators to bring you in on and say, what do you think about this? What would you do? That sort of thing. How can you help us make this better? Do you have a show or a movie or something that you enjoy that you want that to happen or you would like that to happen for?
Singular?
That's such a good question, but what a hard question. Oh. On what show would I be most useful? There's a lot of shows I'd love to, like meta myself into and be just really opinionated and annoying. But on what show could I be useful? Not Arrow. We'll start with that.
I don't know. Maybe they might say, you know what, we're going to do like a 5-part like movie like next season, and we want your input.
If it was like creative direction, yes. But if it's like, okay, so in Only Murders in the Building, the team is trying to solve a murder, right? And so they have these people with like murder expertise that kind of like help them with that, right? If it's something like Arrow, where like the team is trying to take down a supervillain, I can advise on the storyline, but I probably wouldn't be very helpful on like how to literally take down a supervillain. You know what I mean? You know what? Anything set in like a workplace, like we're talking like a functional workplace. So like think Parks and Rec, which is set in like, government job workplace, or The Office, which is set in corporate workplace, or Abbott Elementary, which is set in like education workplace, or anything that's just set in literally any workplace, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, whatever. I feel like given like 2 hours and a few Wikipedia articles, I could probably like come in and like advise them on whatever they're trying to accomplish. And that is unwarranted confidence, but I always have unwarranted confidence. All right, Kate, I bought you some time. Your choice.
Yeah. I think you approached the question in a very different way than what I did, because you want to be the expertise, and I want to come in with a big red marker and go, listen, these are your problems. Let me fix them. So my first gut instinct is to go like Critical Role, WandaVision, because those are things I love. But I think better use would probably be a show that I really, really loved, but found a lot of issues with along the way. I'm just trying to shows like Arrow, but I think maybe even Shield, Agents of Shield, because it was great most of the time, but there would be occasional ball drops that would really fumble the business. But I think out of recent properties, the thing that I wish I could be on was the movie Multiverse of Madness.
Ooh, yes. That's
the 4-hour debrief that we had that Cammien and I had following watching the movie, she got even more of a perspective of what I thought they should do than what was talked about here. And I think while the concept had potential, it could have been done so much better. And I wish somebody would have handed me a big red Sharpie and gone, fix it.
Carey, as a testament to your question, we have 2 incredible answers in the chat, and I'm jealous that I didn't think of either one of them. Stormy came in with a banger. She said Bridgerton. Stormy, you're right. I want to steal your answer. Yes. You're so right. Both Kate and I could improve Bridgerton. Carey could also improve Bridgerton. Many of us could. And that's very much unwarranted confidence because, again, Shonda Rhimes knows better than us. But in my little 2 brain cells, I'm so sure, give me any Regency era period romance piece and I can make it better. William has 2 excellent answers. He says The Walking Dead and Mad Men. William, I would absolutely trust you to make The Walking Dead better because you could not make it worse. Like, I get whatever confidence you have is warranted because you couldn't make it worse. The storyline, like, I made the mistake not of getting invested in the storyline of The Walking Dead, but like having an opinion on like, how can this be made meaningful in the grand scheme of like the apocalypse or whatever? Like, who is this sort of like, who are some of the critical keys that can get them through the apocalypse or whatever? And the show just wanted to kill people for fun. Shout out. He also says Mad Men. That's a really great answer. That's a really great answer because that's a great world that was built that left a lot of room for like improvements and things that were not explored. Carey, what do you think of our answers? Critique us.
And what would be your answer?
Well, the only thing I would say to your initial comment was that they didn't bring in those podcasters, at least in my opinion, they didn't bring those podcasters in because they were quote unquote experts on murder. They brought them in because they were experts on listening to their podcast. And so that was sort of like the big deal because it was like, okay, there's some things that we've talked about that we may not have paid attention to. And so it was just fresh eyes more than anything else.
Yeah.
My easy answer for myself would be The Flash. Anytime they want to tell a story about, the Central City citizen and they want to tell a story about reporting and it just always seems to go off the rails, I'd like to come in there, just have them just for like, a few minutes or whatever and say, you know what, I know this isn't a reporter or a journalism show, but let's put a little bit of believability in here, just a tad, just a small tad. But yeah, that's where I would go.
Cast Carey as somebody in what's the name of the like journal that goes on there? Central what is it the Iris runs?
The Central City Citizen.
Yes.
I think
cast him in that
right.
And then also make him temporarily, of course, Barry and Iris forever, right? Oh my goodness, swoon. Temporarily make him Iris's love interest.
I would not object.
As well, you shouldn't. Good. That was such a good question. I'm excited. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. What show would I pop onto and fix? All of them. All of them. Reality dating shows. Again, such unwarranted confidence, but I'm so sure me and my 2 brain cells could kill it producing a reality dating show. I know I'm wrong, but also you can't convince me I'm wrong.
If Cammie and I were hired as like production assistants, somewhere between production assistants and just like producers,
yes,
for what was the train wreck that was the Pride and Prejudice reality dating show, they would be receiving some of the best ratings they could have ever predicted for a reality dating show. Instead, they presented us with that garbage fire.
One thing about me is I'm going to tell a story, like it's going to be exciting. There'll probably be romance, but it will definitely, I can pinpoint what will be entertaining. Well, we are 2 minutes over time, and that is the fault of me and my unwarranted confidence, which will not go away in 2 weeks. So we will be back in 2 weeks to chat about some of the new returning fall shows, which include, but will not be limited to, the return of Stargirl and the return of Kevin Can F himself. And I'm so excited about both of those, very 2 different ends of the scale. Between now and then, I think I may also dive into She-Hulk and a couple other of the Disney Plus shows that I'd kind of been delaying on. I think we're going to move out of the Hulu realm that I was on there for a bit, move over to Disney Plus and catch up on some of those pieces that I missed. Very exciting. Thank you also to those in the chat for chatting along with us. Thank you for your thoughts, your opinions, agreements, disagreements. We will see you all in 2 weeks. All of the information for Kate and Carey are in the description down below, so you can chat about them. You can chat about them. You can chat with them about all the other shows that they watch and you watch. Bye.